Good afternoon, everyone, and I invite all of our panelists to come on camera, and so we can see everyone's smiling face. But my name is Kathy Nathnagle, and I am the content manager here at GiveSmart by Community Brands, and I am thrilled to have everyone listening today. Today is episode 12, the final one of our Fundraising Success Blueprint series, where our hope was to go in depth on 12 areas of fundraising and to not only address each topic, but also provide a complete blueprint so that you can have continued and growing fundraising success. We are big believers that people prefer to hear from their peers rather than us. And today I'm really excited to be joined by some amazing individuals who've graciously given up their time and to share their talent and insight. So welcome to Bob from the Lincoln Way Foundation, Heidi from American Alpine Club, Leslie from First Tee Delaware, and Melissa from St. Joseph Regional High School. And I would love to hear a little bit more about what all of your organizations do. So Bob, if you would tell us a little bit about what Lincoln Way Foundation does.
Sure, I appreciate it. It's an honor to be a part of the panel. You know, our mission of our foundation is to creatively generate financial support with which to enrich and enhance the opportunities and educational experiences of over 6,000 students in our high school district. And we've been doing this since 1994. We've raised $4.6 million since inception, and we take those proceeds and give them back in the form of scholarships, as well as classroom enhancements. We average donations on an annual basis back to the community and the school in excess of $100,000 a year. And we do that through 10 different events, 4 of which are supported by GiveSmart, thank goodness. And we really appreciate your guys' assistance and help with our fundraising efforts.
Great. No, I love to hear it. And we are grateful that we get to help. Heidi, do you want to tell us a little bit about American Alpine Club?
Yeah, Kathy, thanks for having me. I am Heidi McDowell. I'm the club's advancement director. I run the events and strategic partnerships for the American Alpine Club. For those of you who aren't familiar, we are the country's largest climbing nonprofit, and we are a membership-based nonprofit. So folks sign up, pay their annual dues to get benefits like rescue insurance, discounts on partner brands, and a bunch more good stuff. But more importantly, each membership and donation that we steward supports our good work. The AAC's mission is to educate climbers, to keep them safer, to protect our wild spaces so that everybody has access to them, and to build community. So that is who the AAC is in a nutshell.
Perfect. No, thank you. Leslie, do you want to tell us a little bit about First Tee Delaware? Oh, you're on mute, Leslie.
So sorry.
Okay.
Zoom fatigue after a while. We kind of forget. My name's Leslie McGuigan. I'm the business manager for First Tee Delaware. First Tee Delaware is one of the many chapters of First Tee National, which is a youth development organization that we teach healthy habits and life skills through the game of golf. So the game of golf is a tool that we teach these habits. So it's the healthy habits and the life skills that is really the important part about it. And if the participants come out with a good golf game, that is awesome. And I will tell you, many of them do, but they also get involved in so much giving back into the community through our program and through our 9 core values. And one of that is one of our most important ones would be responsibility, which really ties in with our stewardship theme today.
Perfect. Absolutely. And then Melissa, do you want to round us out and tell us a little bit about St. Joseph Regional High School?
Sure. Thanks for having me. I'm Melissa Urshik. I am the Development Associate at St. Joseph's Regional High School in Bergen County, New Jersey. We are an all-boys Catholic high school, grades 9 through 12, with an extended 8th grade program. So we have about 4 major fundraisers a year, with some smaller ones thrown in there. All of our fundraising efforts go towards either financial aid scholarship for the boys, or just the general operating costs to run the school. Tuition does not cover the cost that it is to educate each child. So there is a shortfall that we do have to fundraise for every year. But we try to do that and make up for that shortfall. And then along the way, we include the boys and the alumni to get involved through our various programs at the school.
Perfect. No, that's great. And again, we're really grateful that all of you are here. Today, we will be taking, I guess, let me go here, Zoom webinar tips. So to see all of our panelists, because you might have seen them kind of pop on if you have speaker view, which is your choice. But if you want to see everyone at once, gallery view is the way to go. If you have a question, please put it in the Q&A box. The chat box is there, and Susanna, my colleague, will be sharing some resources and some information for you. But your questions are best served in the Q&A box because it just gives us a nice record. So if we need to follow up or there's more information we want to share or we don't have a chance to get to your question, that's the best place to put it. And then, like I said, we'll be sharing those resources for today's agenda, which is, we're going to talk a little bit about stewardship in general, but we're going to be talking really about recognition and how do we continue to follow up with donors and make them feel appreciated and genuinely thanked and recognized. What are the communication strategies that our panelists are using to kind of make that happen kind of throughout the year, because fundraising never stops. That's the title of today. And then we're going to talk very briefly about kind of how do you measure impact, how do you track, and and where do you go from there. So before we dive into that, we're going to do a poll like we've done every time. Perfect. So when you're looking at your year, are you doing all virtual campaigns? Do you have all hybrid campaigns in the works? Are you doing some virtual with some live? Are you doing all in person, or are you kind of clueless? And I'm curious, do any of our panelists, have your plans changed from the start of the year to now? Probably. Yeah. Oh, I got a lot of resounding nods. Does anyone have a big in-person event planned for the fall, for the next few months?
We do.
Yeah. We do. Thumbs up all around. I love it. It is, it's really, really nice to see. And I will go ahead and share these results. And I guess not surprisingly, there's some virtual. So some virtual campaigns in the works and some live, but this is sort of the percentage that we've seen throughout, except for that all in person has kind of climbed up. And I'm sure depending on your calendar, I know some of our panelists said that you have a lot of events that you do, like 10 or whatever. And some people that we work with, do that closer to 1 to 2. So if your first event wasn't until the fall, you can probably confidently say everything's going to be in person. So with that, I'm curious for our panelists, and I'm just going to kind of put this out there. This year, obviously, made things, different. And this past year, you didn't have the opportunity necessarily to have kind of that face-to-face, face-to-face. How about that? Less aggressive, face-to-face interaction. So are there some strategies that you kind of have implemented over this past year that have really helped you deepen relationships with your donors and your supporters that you're looking to kind of continue in the future? And that's for anyone.
So I will say the use of the virtual platform with GiveSmart and the use of Zoom, and I know everybody may just very much dislike that word at this point, has actually given us a tool to keep better engaged with our donors, as well as like our board members that may not have been as active in our meetings, because no matter where you're at, we can gather everybody together. And even if it's not for a whole meeting or a whole session, it could be for 5 or 10 minutes of it. And we seem to have a lot more engagement right now. So
that's good.
Very positive. Absolutely.
That is really positive. I don't know if any of you have had similar experiences or things that you've learned along the way or missteps.
I can add to that and say that even post pandemic, once things are fully, hopefully in the rear view mirror, I'm planning to continue a virtual component being built into all of our major events.
Sure.
Because it allows us to capture an audience who can't make it to the in-person event for reason X, Y, and Z, and make it more accessible. It also gives us the opportunity to capture some evergreen content and kind of reuse some of the recordings or snippets from the recordings in various ways, including in donor stewardship. We've been able to share those recordings after the fact and say, hey, in case you missed this, here's a chance to plug in and deepen your connection to the American Alpine Club.
Absolutely. And I think that you just kind of hit the nail on the head there, that around the nose, that when we talk about stewardship, it really is the long game. So it's and sometimes it can be hard to measure, and we might talk about that a little bit. But when you look at stewarding donors, when you look at follow-up, there are things that you can invest in for your event. So if it's like a video, and that could be time, that could be money, having to get like a video made or doing something, more on your own, whatever that looks like. That there are opportunities to use that in an evergreen sense and to share it with your segments and all of that sort of stuff along the way to really have that investment have a longer return, which is just really, I think, really, really, really important. Someone asked, and this is actually maybe a curious question, and do you guys charge your virtual attendees?
No,
we did not.
Yeah. And I would say overall, that's the experience that we've seen. I shouldn't say that, but it's been a little bit of both. But and I don't know if this is what you're going to be doing at the American Alpine Club, but they're saying that the ticket price of the in-person experience obviously includes a meal. It includes opportunity to drink. It includes music. It includes the fanfare. It includes all of the ambiance and the experience. So there is still a value to that. Like, people don't seem to get discouraged of virtual v in person, but that's just an aside. I guess, do any of you, when you started, and we're going to be doing another poll in a second, but I guess from when you started your organizations, were there kind of segmentation or stewardship plans that you revamped, or was there something that you just feel really strongly like, this is something I looked at and I needed to redo, or this is where we found success?
Well, I can speak. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I can speak to that. We, when I started at St. Joe's, it was a one-person department.
Sure.
And I use the term kind of loosely. And it has grown since then. So now we have a director of advancement and alumni engagement, a director of our annual fund, and then myself as the development and events director. So we've grown exponentially just in our department itself.
Sure.
And then, so we've had to, just by design, had to revamp what we have done. And part of that is definitely alumni outreach and current family outreach, mm-hmm. and determining what programs or events each different segment really is interested in participating in. So we've really taken that on over the last few years and have developed it into a multimodal approach of getting those people involved.
Absolutely. No, yeah, growing 4 times would mean that you'd have more opportunity, because we'll talk a little bit about this too, but stewardship, I think, and segmentation and all the things that go into really genuine, strong follow-up plans can feel like it's too much to handle. And it can feel like it's this big thing that needs to be kind of developed and overcome. But hopefully today, as our listening audience, listens in, that you'll understand that, you got to take that first step. And there are things that you can do when you're a 1-person show to be impactful. And there are things that when you're a 4-person show that you can do to be impactful, and that, you shouldn't be limited by, don't create the limits that aren't there, I guess is the way to put it. But Bob, you had something to add too?
Yeah, our program's a little different because we've been around for so long. We had 6 core events, and a couple of years ago, we decided to combine a bunch of them to what we call our partner program. And what we did is, we're very maybe 80-20% relying on the business community as opposed to alumni and parents. Because a
Sure.
lot of parents are saying, hey, I'm getting taxed in Illinois for the schools, pretty much, a big bite now. I'm not going to give any more. So we go to the business community. And as opposed to going a la carte saying, hey, would you give us a donation for the dinner gala? Would you buy tickets for our summer fest? Would you sponsor our half marathon? We created like a McDonald's extra value meal with our partner program a couple of years ago. So by
Okay.
giving us a lump sum donation, now they get into everything, and I'm not
Sure.
bothering them because we were very high touch. I
Sure.
belong to 5 chambers. So I shake a lot of hands. Everything was face to face. And then with COVID, boy, did we have to relearn and redo everything. And we
Sure.
created 4 new events, kind of like what Heidi said, where we ended up having to go virtual with our dinner gala. And we thought, oh boy, it used to be a cool thing to go to the gala, see everybody, and only people who went to that could bid on things and get raffles, et cetera. Through
Sure.
GiftSmart, we opened it up. All of a sudden, the whole community jumped in. We made more money than we ever did. Then with the virtual that we did in February of 2021, we ended up netting the same amount. Our gross wasn't as high, but our net was equal. So we expanded it to 10 events, and it's been really great because then I can track through GiftSmart and all the reporting and go back to all these donors who've logged in, who've never set foot at one of our events. And all of a sudden I got a whole new database of donors to thank. So,
and that I think is a really important thing that, I mean, the fact that you're looking at your reporting and kind of developing those segments. I'm just curious before we move on, did anybody else kind of have a similar experience where you got a new set of donors that you weren't expecting because of virtual?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We gained, I don't want to say younger crowd because I don't want to really offend anybody, but we got a techier crowd. Yeah, a techier crowd with our with GiveSmart and our online giving program and all of our campaigns. But we still realize the importance of keeping our other demographic of donors who we still do a traditional mailing that backs up to all of our GiveSmart campaigns. So now we're targeting both ends of it and retaining them as well.
Well, no, that's good. And I will say, I think that that's a nice kind of segue into our next poll, and I will launch it, but I am going to follow up on what you said, which is, and I think we can share this in the chat too, but we did a whole webinar on donor segmentation and why it's important. So, I mean, Leslie, you spoke to the idea of doing it kind of by generation. I think some people will do it by, I'm sure, Bob, you mentioned that you are really targeting some of those newer donors with a specific kind of reach out or specific communication, and you're thanking them, which is step one. And I'm sure, like Melissa and Heidi, you have grown in staff, or I know, Heidi, we were talking earlier that you grew in membership, that there are these segments that kind of develop and come up, and you should consider kind of what a long-term follow-up plan is for them, or what a long-term thing looks like. Because I'm curious, and this is something I kind of always say, but when you look at your major donors or people who are your biggest supporters, did they start that way? Did they start coming in with 1,000 or 10,000, or they brought in 50 new members, or whatever that looks like? Or did they start more at a $150 level?
Ours is pretty varied. Ours is about a 50-50.
Okay.
And we have so many different events that are going on, and we have our programming that's targeted towards our parents. And that brings in some revenue for us because especially our life skills on the golf course, there is a fee for that. But in turn, we never, ever, ever turn away a family or a participant for the inability to pay. So there's a lot of financial aid. So in order to achieve that, there is another level of people that we have to go after for our bigger events so that we can keep that option open for our parents. So we are probably about maybe 45% of our parents to maybe 65% of large donors and corporations that bring in our funding for our program.
No, for sure. And I think too that, that speaks to the fact that, even your events, it sounds like you're saying, I'm going to segment and I'm going to steward people for certain things. And that's, I promise I've been teasing it, but that's what we're going to get into. So looking at these results, some folks are kind of in the beginning stages, not yet started. That is a good percentage of people, about 40 or so percent, 50 or so percent, and then developed, but could use some improvement. So I'm sure people are here for new ideas and are excited to learn new ideas. So that's what we're going to get into. So I will share my screen and we will talk about your events. Now, Bob, you had mentioned businesses and how you ask businesses to that's really, it sounds like the donor pool that you kind of try to steward and work with most closely. Is right. There, tell me a little bit about your small business raffle.
Yeah, during COVID, obviously it was really difficult to go to these businesses that were struggling for whatever multitude of reasons and ask them to give us donations and items. Even though our dinner gala, let's say, was virtual, we still wanted to have raffle items, et cetera, for people to bid on. And a couple of ladies came to me and said, hey, what do you think about this small business raffle? And they laid it out to me and we looked at it, and as a 501c3, we were very happy to partner with them because it gave us a chance to give back to those businesses that were supporting us. I constantly thank the entire community whenever we have an event, whenever I do a Facebook post. I just did one an hour ago for our ball drop that we're going to do, our golf ball drop, thanking the community for their ongoing support. And I said, why don't we not deviate from our mission, but the two key words in our mission are creatively generate financial support. So to me, this was an extremely creative way to generate financial support for those businesses that support us, knowing they would turn around and hopefully give some of those monies that we generated and gave to them back to us, whether it be via product, via service. And it turned out to be a huge success. We raised about $120,000 gross. And then after expense, we distributed it all back to the businesses that participated. And it was very successful. And more importantly, the message that I think the community got was that our foundation did more than just ask for money and buy Elmo projectors, or just ask for money and gave out scholarships. We actually went back, circled back, and helped out the community that helped us.
Well, and I think that obviously you did it because it was the right thing to do and they had been giving to you, and it was obviously a challenging time. But then you said, down the road, these businesses already have given back and you will get more than you gave, which is, I guess, for all nonprofit, that's kind of the point, right? But I think it's really, really important you segmented. We saw a lot of this during COVID because there were additional needs that came up. If you're, we had another panelist that they kind of do a food bank in the Bronx, New York, and they had, I think it was like a 9-fold request for food. And so they needed to get more donations, right? So there were a lot of special needs that came up, and all of us have missions that have segmented things, whether it's athletics at your school or, engaging new golfers. You said like, scholarships for families that can't necessarily do that, or I'm sure Alpine Club, you do, similar things like scholarships and all of that for new members, or education, because you have things that people might be passionate about safety and the like. That all of those individual segments, that's an opportunity to communicate and to steward those groups to have long-lasting impact. And I think that this particular example, one, I think it's really smart, and two, I just think it's a really, really, really nice way to, the whole campaign is stewarding the people who've given to you year over year over year. So it was very smart. So,
and Kathy, the beauty of it was the people that bought the raffle chances, because boiling it down, it is a raffle. And There are a segment of people that don't really care about business. They don't care about education. They just want to win a raffle. The gamblers out there. Okay. So with our other events, through GiveSmart, I captured the database. I can text them for our ball drop. I can text them for the dinner gala. I can text them for other things through you guys. So now I've created another database that I didn't have until we did this. Kind of a byproduct that wasn't kind of, thinking about it at the time. But so what?
So what is right? Well, and I think it definitely speaks to, you have to use what the tools you have provide to you. And I know from my experience, sometimes we would take a little step back and you have to look at a little more broad picture, or, take a step back and you can see a fuller picture. And that's a perfect example of, I think all of you did nod your head when you said you got a a multitude of new donors, there is an opportunity there, either the amount that they gave or the thing that they gave to. So a raffle in your case, you're like, that's what they're interested in. So let's give them more raffles. Whatever that looks like, that's an opportunity to steward and to thank and to follow up with mission information and the like to make people feel like, yeah, I just bought a raffle ticket because I like the restaurant down the street. But ultimately, now I know what Lincoln Way Foundation does. Now I know, why investing in my community education, whether or not I have children, isn't a really important thing. I just think that, there's a lot of opportunity there and a lot of layers that make stewardship sometimes feel like a really big bite, but it just make it so, so, so important. And Heidi, I know when we were talking yesterday, you said like, this is the event that we do the most stewardship for. So do you want to tell me a little bit about GRIT and what kind of your stewardship plan looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is our annual benefit gala. We do a ton of events throughout the year, but this is our largest gathering and fundraiser and stewarding opportunity. So in a normal year, it is an in-person event. It's a full weekend with everything from free components, educational components, and inspiring fundraising components. For the last 2 years, we have been fully virtual, and that has definitely allowed us to bring in some new donors at various levels, and to increase the reach of the event. And so typically kind of what our stewardship looks like, it begins well before the event. We bring on a team of volunteers. We call them our host committee. They're community members who are well connected, and we really rely on them to reach beyond the AAC's known network. Because the problem I'm sure anybody who works for a nonprofit has experienced is finding that next layer of people to bring in. And so by asking our volunteers to invite their networks to our event, we're stepping outside of the AAC's known reach. From there, we send out digital invitations. We print invitations that we send in the mail, kind of for what Leslie was saying earlier, reach people where they're at. So sure. Whether digital or in print. Leading into the event, I have to give a huge shout out to our development team at the AAC, Maria and CJ. They really formulate a plan for specific one-on-one outreach to key donors to basically say, hey, I see that you are going to be at this event, whether in person or digital. We are doing a Raise Your Paddle or a Fund a Need. This is what we are raising money for, and we would love for you to commit to this level. Absolutely. So part of what they do that's so successful is even before hopping on the phone or sending these emails, they identify what level of giving they believe a donor should be at. Of course, this is us kind of looking at past giving and based on other conversations maybe that they've had with the donors, but I think going in with kind of a goal, maybe it's a little bit more than the donor has given in the past, sure. Can help elevate a donor's giving. But I think a key thing that they do in those conversations is really ask questions and listen. Like, is this a cause that you're interested in? Where are you at? What can we do to excite you? Sure. How can we best steward your donation? And then going into the event, it's the same thing. When it's an in-person event, we're shaking hands. We brief all of the staff before coming to the event, like, you are the face of the club. Tonight, you are a fundraiser. So just go out there and chat. And even if you're not saying, hey, I want you to give the club money, talk about climbing, talk about the music, just like build that connection and deepen that relationship, because like 90+% of fundraising is relationship building.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then of course we go into post event and follow up. And that feels like maybe that's another question that you have coming. So I'll stop there.
No, that's fine. No, and I think, I mean, you brought up a thing that a few panelists kind of during this series have mentioned, which is that idea of an ambassador. So whether it's a table and ambassador, whether it's like you, seems like you kind of have a team that is dedicated to maybe reaching out to local climbers or whatever, like, because you're a niche market, right? Or we've seen it done on like a social media kind of like street team sort of thing where they send, you know, signs that would be like, you know, I'm a supporter of Alpine Club, and it's supposed to, you're supposed to like take a picture and make it your profile or whatever. And all of those things are very deliberate. I mean, I think you spoke to a lot of an important thing about stewardship is that it's very deliberate. It's genuine, and it's, you know, it's a plan. And so I'm guessing that when you talk about your paddle raise and what those levels can help you deliver on your mission, if you have certain people targeted, you're going to try to probably mention things that they're interested in. So if someone was interested in beautifying a park because it's where they and their children went all the time, that you would be like, and this allows us to beautify parks, like this beautiful one at Kathy Park across the corner or whatever. That you're being very, very, very strategic in terms of what your offerings are to appeal to the people who are going to, in theory, give you the most. And that is, I know, perhaps something that some of you are doing, but when you look at a stewardship plan and really dialing in, those are just some important things to note. And then I will go on over, ooh, where's my cursor? There it is. I guess, Melissa, tell me a little bit about your day of giving, because I think how you have it set up basically help segment your donors for you, which I think is really smart.
Sure. So our day of giving is, it has kind of morphed into a completely virtual event. We were virtual before COVID even. It initially started with that one person that was in the department with a direct mail to donors of the past. And what it has turned into is what you see on the screen. It is, because we're a boys' school, competition is a big thing around here. So we have segmented by class, by alumni year, by current families, alumni families, grandparents. We really have really brought it down to several different groups. And what we ask them to do is make a donation into whatever group category they fall into. And then there are prizes for the top grossing class, the class with the highest percentage participation of their alumni year. There's a prize for the biggest increase in percentage of donors. So we really do try to make it a competition amongst themselves. And what it really has done is grown year over year to really our signature event that we have at the school. And there is no overhead for it, basically, because we don't do any direct mail for this anymore. People just kind of know that it's usually in the spring and they take a look out for it. But really what has driven it is we have class ambassadors from each class, and if not each class, then every few classes. So those people are typically the ones that have the best contact information of their classmates, or those plus or minus a year or two of them. So they'll get out on their phone and they'll start texting their friends to say, today's the day of giving. We're losing by $1,000. Can you donate? There's email strands that go out that sometimes we're included in, and it's just a day's worth of reminiscing and just people talking back and forth. So those ambassadors and the people that really get those people involved really are the ones behind the scenes that drive this campaign to be as successful as it is. We typically raise between $200,000 and $250,000 in one day.
No, I would say that has success written all over it. And I think we're sensing a theme of ambassadors and, having those people and, with GiveSmart, I'm not sure if any of you have implemented it, but any campaign that you do, you can do an unlimited amount. It's the same subscription fee, whether you do one event or 35 events, which is nice for a lot of people, but also there's a peer-to-peer or like a voting element that we've seen a lot of people use. And to your point, it's about that competition. It's about, either having prizes. So saying, we're going to have everyone, the top fundraisers or get, XYZ or this, and it doesn't have to be something tangible. It could be recognition on Facebook. It could be recognition at the homecoming game. It could be recognition at your gala or your dinner if you're not a school. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity to really have that stewardship and that recognition piece that I think is really important. And again, that ambassador theme is clearly coming through. So I also wanted to jump over to First T, and we'll talk a little bit about your communication, because you have some good, I think, really important notes on communication. But I guess tell me a little bit, just so everyone knows, or I guess I'll stop talking. But do you update your sites often? Like, is it a kind of a living, breathing thing, or once it's set, it's set?
Oh, no. So usually on this, what you're showing right now was our Delmarva Scramble, which is an annual golf outing that we have, but it was really bumped up to a much higher level this year because our organization was doing a major expansion in Sussex County, Delaware, and a few surrounding counties in Maryland. So in order to, retain or attract the donors and the families and the businesses that we need to make our program as strong and as lasting in our southern area as it has been in the north, we had to bump it up a little bit. So it went to a much bigger, nicer course, and that's what the Delmarva Scramble was.
Sure.
But normally the header, once I design the header, we keep that, or the banner, whatever you want to call it, we keep that pretty similar. But on the information part of the GiveSmart website homepage, there's a pretty stable messaging in there before the event starts, just letting everybody know where it is, what time they need to be there, what they
Sure.
need to bring, whatever. But as soon as the day starts, that messaging, it's like, okay, the day of, welcome everybody. We're here setting up already. We're getting excited. We're waiting for you to come. We may change it as the day of the event is going on or the week of the event is going on. With this particular event and with a couple other events, we do have a silent auction part of it, along with all the golfer and the sponsorship. Sure. We keep the silent auction open for at least a week after the event, because all of the attendees at this event then takes it home to their family, their friends, their work colleagues, and it expands our reach a lot more. And then the day that usually a day or two before the auction is going to close, we utilize both the email and the text option on the GiveSmart. We're constantly posting on our Facebook, our Instagram, our Twitter, along with using our constant contact as well. And we really make a very strong competition out of it. Then we have a few anonymous donors that some of our staff or our good volunteers will actually sit on the program for them and bid on behalf of them.
Sure.
So it's fun. It's fun. It's really that last hour, and we really start, sending out the messaging, finding, really cute little quirky messages to find out to get everybody engaged. Like with our guest bartender before, one of our biggest thing was it's 5 o'clock somewhere. So we use that often. It could have been 8 o'clock in the morning. It could have been 9 o'clock at night, but everybody's like, wow, I know what that means. I'm going to get engaged. So having the GiveSmart program has been wonderful, but I will tell anybody else who's listening too, who is thinking about also using it, you need to find another driver to get people there as well. And then constantly utilize, and after your events, thank everybody, list their names, say where they're from.
Right.
If you have a staff member or a volunteer who, got a lot of the donations for the silent auction, say, this event would not happen without XYZ getting 15 things. It engages them to be more engaging in future events and fundraising and programming.
Absolutely. So, and you sparked a question, and I'm curious, do any of you have any sort of, because you're really talking about thanking, but also recognition. And I think that there sometimes, if you don't have a physical building, or if depending on what your nonprofit does, to all of our listening audience, you don't necessarily think that you have the opportunity for like naming rights or things like that. So I'm curious, do any of you have some really great like recognition opportunities that you specifically have available to like top level donors, or to those donors that you've stewarded that you're really excited about, or that have really helped you kind of in the long run with their engagement?
With us, with our golf outings that we have title sponsors, and their names are prominent, which the Give Smart program allows you to put them in prominent places and let their names be on every page that everybody hits. Sure. As well as on our website, we'll have signage around our all of our locations that we're holding classes. One of the new sponsorships for our upcoming outing this year is a site sponsor. So if a company wants to come in and they want to sponsor that site for the season and allow up to 25 kids to participate for free, well, their sign is going to be out every single time a class is held at that location. And we are at private golf courses as well as public golf courses while other people are golfing. So the amount of publicity that that person gets is priceless. I mean, it's to the point where you can't even measure it anymore. Sure. We may have a day where there's hundreds of people on the golf course and they're seeing that signage and like, wow, that's really cool that they are sponsoring these kids to be able to do this. And it's really a feel good way.
Well, and I think, what I think is really great is that you're talking about, for sure, like sponsor benefit. And I know we have a link to share in the chat about, I think it's titled 30 silent auction items that don't cost a dime. But when you look at that, you're like, Kathy, this isn't about silent auctions. Why are you taking us off course? Partly that's my personality. But number two, a lot of the items that are on there are things that you could use for recognition, because they're either naming rights. I think we've seen really creative things done, like, again, talking about schools, like in a classroom or for a certain event or for a certain sporting event or whatever that may look like. But I know when I said, does anyone have a recognition? Everyone went off mute. So I think Melissa, Heidi, or Bob, do you have anything that you're like, this worked for us and it got people so excited and helped us keep donors engaged? Because I think ultimately that's what we're kind of trying to talk about.
What we do, we try to cross-pollinate. So if somebody donates for one event, I try to parlay it and say, oh, since you're the big donor for that, you do get all the recognition electronically, physically on the signage. Yeah. But we'll give you now a lot of PR at our other events. We'll carry over that signage, and we give them special seating at, like, say, graduation. If they wanted, they get up close sitting. We give them complimentary tickets to the Summerfest if they sponsor the dinner gala, or vice versa. Sure. We do have a luncheon every year that goes out, and they get acknowledged to the community at that luncheon. And finally, we create plaques. We've got a couple of plaques that they can choose from, and then they can display them on their business. And we leave space for an annual contribution. So they'll get a plaque for 2021. And then I'll call them up and say, we'd love to get that donation because I've got your 2022 plaque, little placard that goes in there to keep them engaged, to keep them going.
Right, Bob. That's right. You give that space to say, because it'd be really, once you put a plaque up in your office, if it only has 1 year on it, it's like, put that up.
No, we've got 15 spots there.
That's
and
right.
The last thing we do, we sell what are called bricks, or larger plaques that we put in our auditoriums of the 3 schools. So for our large donors, they can put a special message up to 35 characters, and then that's there in essence forever. And it doesn't have to be like their business name. We had one business who made a donation, and you know what their plaque said was, "Go outside." So we put it up.
No, I like that. Hey dear Melissa, do you have anything that you think has really helped drive some engagement?
Yeah. Similar to what Bob has said, we started doing a package deal basically for larger donors who, so they'll get their sign up at our football stadium. in our gymnasium. We have a large performing arts program, so they may get recognition in the performing arts for their seasonal shows. So it's a level-based approach. So, you know, X amount of dollars gets you recognition in these things, like another X amount of dollars gets you recognition here. And that has worked well for us for some of our larger donors. So obviously the smaller donors are one-offs, maybe here and there, but for the most part, that approach has worked well for us.
No, that's good. And I do want to be mindful of time because I just looked at the clock. Shame on me. Hopefully that shows. Oh, yeah. Okay. Because you made me think of something, and we'll talk about communication and I guess kind of reporting in a nutshell. But Bob, I know you've mentioned communication or reports a few times that you can see like the number of bids that somebody made, or this was a snapshot of a report. You can see this was a school that did exactly what you did, Melissa, and they had different tiles, different opportunities based on like sports teams. So you do it by classes, they did it by teams. But again, if you're a nonprofit, you know, think about the different things that you fund. Either it's if you're a health nonprofit, it's, you know, diseases or patient access and, you know, segments, or you know, any of those things. And what I really like about this style, or kind of segmenting the donation opportunities, is it segments your audience, which is step one of all of this. And I definitely should have started with this, but the reason we're talking about stewardship, the reason why I'm sure all of you who are listening are clamoring for a plan or clamoring to improve your plan, is because it is anywhere from 3 to 5 times more expensive to get a new donor in the door than it is to maintain a current donor. So when we look at all of these recognition things that we're talking about, we look at the way that we communicate, we look at the events that we put out there, we look at the thank yous that we send and that we call and we say. Sometimes it feels like it's not the measurement of, when I make this phone call, it doesn't equal $1. Can feel scary to invest your time and energy in that, but ultimately stewarding the right way is far less expensive than trying to get new donors in the door, number one. And then number two, there's some statistics out there that show that organizations lose more donors than they bring in. So that they lose on average, I think it was 107, and they only bring in, you know, for every 107 they lose, they only bring in 100. So when we look at making the people who are invested in us happy and keeping them happy and keeping them invested, and a big part of that is sharing mission information, and without an ask, which I think is something I know, Leslie, with First Tee, that you had some really good email examples that I will pull up in.
Yeah, we're getting ready to do another one of them on our First Tee Friday blast again this week. So
sure. And you had mentioned yesterday that when you started doing emails like this one, which I know newsletters sometimes give people hives, but we'll stick with it. You had kind of shared that you segmented, or I guess tell me a little bit about kind of your strategy behind this and what your return was.
So that when we start out with a really good feel-good story about an alumni or a really nice, cute child that has done something really well, and this had a lot of it in there. So this had a lot of engagement. We get a lot of feedback. If we have a lot of asks for money at one time, or a lot of asks to join an event or a fundraiser, it dips way down. So it is. So we're learning as we're using the metrics in the GiveSmart, as well as the constant contacts and Google Analytics. We're really trying to look at that right now and going back and seeing what works and what consistently works. And what works for us at First Tee may not work for a school. So it's really finding that niche that works for you, that stewardship that works for you in your organization.
No, absolutely. And I think too,
and not being afraid to try. That's another thing. So yes. Sorry, I mean, I could talk to, and I do apologize as well too. I came on full-time about a year ago to this organization. I was on full part-time for a little bit. And prior to that, there was only one full-time person and another part-time person, because funding years ago went way down. So with my background, I was able to bring in some of this marketing and PR and analytics, but we now have some staff to do it, and we're growing. So we're going to bring on new staff. So that may change in the next couple of years because our demographics of people in our southern region is much different than our northern region. So it's
Absolutely.
consistently looking at the numbers.
Consistently looking at the numbers, and that's such a big part. And like I said, maybe I said this, I meant to, that we had a whole webinar on donor segmentation and really what looking at the numbers does and what you can look at. And that's what this report snapshot is. But if you want to listen to that, it was shared in the chat, and we'll share it in the recording email after. Someone did ask, and I think it was spurred by something that Bob said, and that's really probably the question that we'll have time for, is that someone said, oh, like GiveSmart has texting. We've used that for like our program, like during our program or during our event. Do any of you use texting outside of your event time with GiveSmart? Like, do you ever, Bob, I think you mentioned that the people who did the raffle, you're texting like to introduce them to your ball drop or other things, which I think you do with a helicopter, which is pretty cool. But do any of the rest of you do kind of texting outside of your like event program?
We don't.
No, fair. I think we've seen groups do it both ways. And I know people are like, do you really want to get texted every day? That's not really the point or what I'm certainly advocating for. But I think kind of sounds like, Bob, what you do of, this is coming up. Thank you for being a past supporter. Just so you know, this is an opportunity that you have. And you looked at those segments of people who are interested in raffles. Ball drops kind of fall in the same category. I think it's really
specific. You don't want to annoy somebody and over text them to be like, what all you want is money. A lot of times we'll just refer them to the site and just say the word thank you, LW Foundation, and hopefully they'll click and look at it. That's it.
Absolutely. And I think too, as we kind of close it out, all of you sort of mentioned, well, the ambassador idea, which I think is really important and something that came out today. All of you mentioned kind of thanking. Do any of you do like handwritten thank yous still, or calls? Yep. So I think sometimes we're hesitant to use the phone, or people don't want that, or that's not how they communicate. And I would encourage you to be quite the opposite. Something I had seen done very well, and I thought it was really smart, is sending anniversary cards to people on their first anniversary of donating, their 5th anniversary of donating, and their 10th, you can get the idea. But like truly did like an anniversary card. And I thought that was really smart because it's saying, I recognize how long you've been invested in me. And we didn't really talk much about sharing that mission information beyond when people give for like fine arts or things like that. But I think that is such a crucial element. And I'm sure when I was looking at some of your sites, it's obvious that there's certain things that people care about or passionate about because you talk about them. And I'm sure, do all of you kind of, if people give to your event, do you say, oh, you helped when you donated, we built a new theater and here's information on why this matters? Like, is that kind of some of the stuff that you guys do? Do you do that sort of specific mission sharing?
Yes, absolutely. We are very fortunate. We actually vet via grants where the money goes. So we can account for every penny that is donated to us. And then we make a video on it. It might be 6 minutes to 10 minutes.
Sure.
And we go to each classroom, basically, in that department, and then video these kids using the DNA strands, using the digital cameras, whatever it is. And then we put that back out to all the partners and out to the community. And we get a really good response. We get a ton of likes on that. And I think that's key because in today's world, people are so skeptical, like, really, what are they doing with the money? And when we show them that, it really creates a bigger buy-in and we retain more of our donors. And I'm glad you mentioned that because I have thank you cards. I have like 200 behind me. I do it all the time. But now that you made me think about that, I have to get some breakup cards for those donors that chose not to donate. I'll be like, why did you break up with us? We need you back. So
yeah, little humor never hurt anyone. And I love it. It's the Chicago way. But with that, I think we'll be wrapping up. But you said something that sparked a thought, and it was breakup cards or talking about, I think I was going to share it, but we don't have the time. But first, T, I know you did like a Happy Mother's Day email and there was no ask in it. And I think from my experience, definitely, I feel very strongly about this, that, we would often ask, donors or people who fundraise on our behalf, our peer-to-peer fundraisers, to like volunteer. Would you, you donate to this thing, would you want to volunteer at this other event that we have? Or you donate here, would you want to bring, blankets to patients or whatever that looks like for your organization? And I think people were so hesitant because it's like, no, they're in this silo and we have to leave them there. And I was like, well, I don't know, they care about us. Let's give them an opportunity. And when I found when I started treating people, when I started talking to people outside of their specific thing, so either, you know, volunteering for us or congratulating them, Googling them and congratulating them on a professional award, or their kid's school doing really well, or whatever that may look like, I had to boss myself into it and put it on my calendar. But when I started doing things like that, just like any relationship, I mean, you said breakup, so that's what made me think of it. People are going to break up with you if they realize that you don't care about anything beyond the dollars that they're giving. And so you have to do the things, you have to share the mission information they're interested in. You have to take the time to treat them as full, whole people. And you'll have return on so much more return than you would if you just make everything transactional. So hopefully today, I know we talked about a lot of different things. We shared a lot of different resources. There was a lot of information shared. Hopefully all of you gathered that there's a few things that you can do, be it an ambassador program, be it the time to write thank you cards, be it the time to look at your reporting. I think that came out throughout today, and to say, hey, like there are segments that we can talk to. There are things that we can do that are small steps that can make a big impact and keep these donors in the fold, because you work so hard to get them there. Don't lose them. So I've mentioned the donor segmentation webinar. We did another Blueprint series on data and reporting. It's really, really valuable, and I think helps make it something that isn't so scary, because either you're a data person or you're not. Like you're an olive person or you're not. There's just some things that are, you're one or the other. And I think that webinar in particular really makes it feel that it's something that you can manage. And then all of them, all of our panelists today talked about doing multiple events, or you have multiple events a year. And you had, were able to stand up that raffle campaign, or there's other things too. But the opportunity to do multiple events or to do different things, we've seen success with, like standing up a mission event or an awards dinner or things like that, to really recognize and thank, those segments of your donor pool that are more likely to help sustain you, because that's the whole point, is you want to have a sustained mission and a sustainable revenue source that you can continue to grow and serve your communities. So with that, I want to say thank you to everyone for listening today. Thank you for being here. There's going to be a survey at the end. It's the last blueprint. So, but we do monthly webinars. We have another one coming up in July about contactless things. But with that, thank you so much to our panel. Thank you to our listeners, and have a great rest of your day.
You're very welcome. Take care.
Bye.